Welcome to the Illuma Newsroom. Hi ho, we've got some dwarfs, you know. And yes, it is dwarfs, not dwarves. Anyway, first up is Bashful Hopeless Romantic and Amber 253 lore for 4 who can't quest unless you have another of the 7 dwarfs. Technically, that could be another Bashful. So this is definitely a lot of lore and a more survivable stat line than Hans or Prince Charming. As we'll see, the idea seems to be to have a deck with all 7 of these buddies. And just a side note, I'm just going to call them dwarfs. I get that when talking about actual people in the real world, the preferred current nomenclature is little person, and there's a whole conversation going on right now about the Snow White remake, and I just don't want to involve myself in that. The title of the movie calls them dwarfs, I'm going to call them dwarfs. Next is Doc, leader of the 7 Dwarfs, 232 lore for 3, with when he quests, pay 1 less ink for the next character you play. So this is pretty insane. He's a mana dork. I think Doc is going to become a staple in every Amber deck, never mind just Dwarf Kindred decks. Then we have Dopey Always Playful, a 2/2/1 lore for 3 with when he's banished, your other 7 dwarfs get +2 strength until your next turn. So that stat line for his cost is pretty terrible, but his ability is interesting. That could either be used to get in some good challenges or just be very defensive on the backswing if you quest out. Or both, but like Bashful, he's really only useful in a dedicated 7 dwarfs deck. Moving along to Grumpy Bad Tempered, a 3/4/1 lore for 4 who gives your other 7 dwarfs +1 strength. This I like better than Dopey because it's a static thing that doesn't require Grumpy to die, but again, only relevant in 7 dwarfs decks. On the other hand, we have Happy Good Natured, a 3/5/2 lore for 5 with support. That's not too bad. Compared to Palace Horse, you have 1 less strength but 1 more lore, though you lose Bodyguard. I think Happy is a solid common who fits nicely in the kinds of decks that are already running support, and of course he's going to be part of the top end of a 7 dwarfs deck as well. Then we have Sleepy Nodding Off, a 2/3/2 lore for 2 who comes into play exerted. That's nice and flavorful, but also seems pretty strong. He does die to Forceful Duelist, but if you're going first, there's no other 1-drop in the game that can deal with him. In the early game, he should honestly be pretty safe to get in at least 1 quest, though late game he will start to be a liability. The last of the 7 dwarfs is Sneezy Very Allergic, a 1/4/1 lore for 2 with when you play him or another 7 dwarfs, give a character -1 strength this turn. So this is just a better drab little crab, and in a 7 dwarfs kindred deck, he is going to be triggered a lot, and you will be getting very favorable challenges. But even just on his own, that's a pretty nice effect to be getting. I think as a package, the 7 dwarfs together could make an interesting deck, but the ones that don't interact specifically with their classification are going to see lots of play in Amber decks more broadly. To finish off this set, we have Snow White Unexpected Houseguest, a 1/2/1 lore for 2, uninkable with you pay 1 less ink for 7 dwarfs. So her stat line is terrible, but that effect is very nice. You almost don't even want to quest with her, just leave her in play like an item and get your 7 dwarfs out quickly. If you play her turn 2, you can drop Doc and Sneezy turn 3, and it'll just get out of hand from there. This deck could get very snowbally, although it does lack draw. You'll probably still want to run Rapunzel gifted with healing, and maybe pair with Amethyst to refill your hand. The other Amber card we saw is Mufasa Betrayed Leader, a 3/3/2 lore for 5 with when he's banished, reveal the top card of your deck if it's a character played for free but exerted, otherwise put it back on top. This is pretty interesting. I've been waiting for ways to get out characters for free, especially from your deck. This is going to encourage including ways to fiddle with the top of your deck, or just running an oops all characters deck to ensure he always goes off. Maybe pair with Amethyst so you can use Agent Provocateur to throw Mufasa back into your hand so you can do it again. We got 1 new Emerald card, Ray Carefree Firefly, a 3/3/3 lore for 5 with Evasive. This is a perfection, and honestly I would run this over Goofy Daredevil, going right into my Ruby Emerald Evasive deck, and he is going to dominate drafts. Moving to Ruby, we've got Honest John, Not So Honest, a 2/3/1 lore for 3 uninkable with when you play a Floodborn, each opponent loses a lore. So it seems like each color is getting a when you play a Floodborn card, and this one ain't too shabby. If you have a deck with lots of Floodborn, even if you aren't shifting them, you can just keep pushing your opponent's lore further and further down. Shifting out Heroic Outlaw with Honest John out could result in a 5 lore swing. This guy is definitely kill on sight. Next we have Radigan, Very Large Mouse, a 3/3/2 lore for 5, uninkable with when you play him, exert an opposing character with 3 or less strength, then ready one of your characters they can't quest. I do like Ruby getting ways to exert characters as they like to challenge. And 3 or less strength covers a lot of the most played cards, gifted with Healing, Infernal Schemer, Ursula, Tiny Tactician, and all the little 1 and 2 drops in aggro decks. I'm also sure this is not the only Radigan we'll be seeing, given that we got 3 Basils. Then we got probably my favorite card of this drop, Shere Khan, Threatening Predator, a 3/3/1 lore for 3, with when one of your characters challenges an opposing character, gain a lore. Not challenge and banish, just challenge. This is insane. He'll be able to get you so much lore, and all he has to do is sit there. This almost starts to justify Shameless Firebrand encouraging a wide board of cheap things. Then Scar can ready them all again for another swing and more lore. I really want to build a deck around this stripey boy. In Sapphire, we just had 1 reveal, Judy Hopps, Optimistic Officer, a 2/3/2 lore for 3, with when you play her, you may banish an item. Its player draws a card. I am so stoked for Sapphire to be getting item hate, and you can even hit your own things if you really need to draw a card yourself. But being able to snipe Sorcerer's Spellbook or Pocket Watch or Shield of Virtue is very, very needed, and I am very happy to see Judy. In Steel, we got another Zootopia card, Chief BOGO, Respected Officer, a 2/4/2 lore for 4, uninkable with when you play a Floodborn, he does 1 damage to each opposing character. Okay, so if he's in play, and you play Giant Fairy, that's 2 damage to everything. Insane. Utterly insane. There is definitely going to be a new Steel deck that runs Giant Fairy and Stout-Hearted, and even thinking a happy thought just to proc Chief BOGO as often as possible. Very nice. And finally, and least expected, Pick a Fight, a 2-cost uninkable action that lets one of your characters challenge ready characters this turn. Your eyes are not deceiving you, that is Wreck-It Ralph in the art there. Surprise! At any rate, this is a very nice card, giving Steel a better way to deal with Cusco and other ward characters than trying to throw out multiple grab your swords in a turn. This is absolutely going to see a lot of play, almost an auto-include in the color. That wraps it up for now. Rise of Floodborn is now over halfway revealed, but there's still only 2 weeks left for 100 more cards. Next week is probably going to be a literal flood of reveals, and I will try my best to keep up with them.